The intersection of endurance sport, health, fitness, and life. Challenging conventional ideas and empowering people with the science of self-propelled motion. This is the Endurance Experience Podcast, hosted by Tony Rich.
This podcast is being launched on International Olympic Day, which was a day introduced in 1948 to commemorate the birth of the modern Olympic Games on the 23rd of June, 1894, at the Sorbonne in Paris. The goal was to promote participation in sport across the globe, regardless of age, gender, or athletic ability. I couldn't have asked for a better podcast guest to help me celebrate this day with the planet Earth. And he'll be the first Olympian on the Endurance Experience Podcast. He is four-time Olympian. 4 times. And took home a silver medal at one of those Olympics. He is known by the world by simply 3 letters. M-E-B. He is Meb Keflezighi. In addition to his 4 Olympic appearances and his silver medal, he's won both the New York City Marathon and famously the Boston Marathon the year after the bombing. He was the first American to do so in decades. He also boasts the most sub-2:10 finishes of any American professional marathoner. Meb has an absolutely unbelievable origin story, coming over to America from Eritrea, a war-torn third world region in Africa, not speaking much English, and something he's very proud of, getting his degree from UCLA and being an amazing runner at UCLA. If you could create a Mount Rushmore of professional American marathoners, Meb would certainly be on that Mount Rushmore. I don't think anybody would even debate that. Meb and his wife, Jordanos, married in November 2004, and they have 3 beautiful daughters, Sarah, Fiore, and Johanna. So I talked to Meb about his incredible origin story, and we talk a lot about the early days in Eritrea and what it was like. We talk about his latest book, 26 Marathons, where he talks about all 26 of his professional marathons, and each chapter in that book is one of those marathons, and he goes through all of the learning experiences for each one. He's won 3 of those 26, and then even DNF'd one, and talks about the learning experiences from that. DNF meaning did not finish. And then we talk about some of the bigger topics in running, including all of the controversy last year about footwear technology and whether or not the footwear technology is giving some professional runners performance advantages. And he famously used to be a Nike-sponsored athlete and moved over to Skechers, and so he had some great comments about that. And we talk about some of the biggest topics of the world today, including COVID-19, and he gives his perspective to athletes on what they should be doing, given all of the events are canceled. And we also talk about much of the racial tension that's happening in the world, questions of police brutality, and Meb gives his candid and personal reflection on that topic, being a black runner in America. So, we had a very interesting conversation, and I'm glad to share this with you on International Olympic Day. So without further delay, I give you Meb Keflezighi. I am on with Meb Keflezighi. Thanks for coming on to the podcast.
Thanks, son. Thanks for having me.
All right. And of course, in our parts, he's simply known by three letters, Meb. And everybody knows Meb. And I'm glad I got a chance to be able to sit down and talk with him. And so much I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about your newest book. I want to talk to you about some of the biggest topics in running in the world today. But first, I want to start with your origin story. Everyone knows you and knows some of the great things that you've done in your life. But I really like origin stories because I think origin stories are very interesting. And you have a very interesting origin story. So I wonder if you can give our listeners some insight into your history growing up in Eritrea and your decision, you and your family, to come over to the States, and what kind of kid you were growing up, and just how you got involved in running. And take as much time as you need to answer this because I think it's very important.
Thanks, Tony, for having me, and also for allowing me to be in your podcast. Most people know me as Meb, and the running grew and whatnot. But my initial beginning, or where I was born, was in Eritrea, which is in the Horn of Africa, northeast of Africa, near the top part of Ethiopia, touching the Red Sea. And I was born in the middle of a war that was going against Ethiopia for independence that lasted 31 years, and my parents didn't realize what they're going to do. My dad had a 7th grade education. My mom didn't go to school at all, but it was survival for them, But my dad was wanted by the Ethiopian soldiers, and he was going to get prison or killed. So, it's kind of a tough situation to be in, and you have a wife and 5 kids and 1 on the way. So, decision has to be made, but it's beneficial for him to be alive and for the family. And they promised each other, my mom was expecting a baby, and, if it's a boy, call him Be'imnet. If it's a girl, call her Amina, which it means with trust, with belief that if I make it a safe land, I will look after you. Because the journey that he was taking, it was about over 225 miles to Sudan. And you can get all that and Run to Overcome, my autobiography, more detail. But that's how it all started. And he was praying that he would make it there. And fortunately for him, it did. He covered, roughly what I said is 225 miles. But he has to do a lot of zigzag. What we measured when I wrote the book was Run to Overcome was straight line. But he was saying, I was climbing mountain. I got to go to the left and then go to the right. And then, climbing mountains. But fortunately, he made it at one point. My faith comes from God through my dad and my mom. But at one point, he was pointed by a gun in that journey. So that could have been the end of it. Whether it was a soldier, whether there's a hunter, he doesn't know. But he said, I know I was meant to survive. And he took him 7 days. And he would sleep on trees because, if you're on the ground, you have lions, scorpions, snakes, and wild animals. He would be eaten. So, and then he would cross his leg between and sleep on the branch of a strong tree. And imagine that. And no hotels, no places to lay down or rest up. But he has to mend in. He traveled from 5 to 10, and then kind of be in somewhere in the world and mend in with people, and then he would go again at night. So it was a tough time for him. But it wasn't even the distance and the fear that he was facing that it was a challenge. The challenge was, am I going to see my wife and kids ever again? And that kept him a night up and work hard. But he made it to Sudan, fortunately. Once he made it there, he made it to Italy. But we stayed in Eritrea from age of 5 until I was 10 years old, I did not see my father, or we didn't have any. My mom had contact with him through letters or phone calls. But as I was growing up as a kid, it was difficult. There was war, there was famine, there was hunger, and
Right.
so and my mom. It's not like here in the United States or developed countries. We need milk, we go get in the store, or we need a bread, you go to the store and get a bread. But in Eritrea, in the third world country, you have to farm it, you have to chop it off and put it in a kind of like a open area where you can have the cattle step on it, take the haze and the grain. You got to grind it, got to try to prepare to make a bread, and then you have a bread by cooking it yourself. So
Right.
thank my mom. She was the husband and the wife of the house, and she made it survive for 5 years. And I remember that, as a kid, not everybody had opportunities to go to school. I remember my younger sister, Bahgi, who's a doctor now, but at the time she's like, I hope I can get lottery to the school. So, and she has to pay 25 cents, to apply for the lottery. So 25
Wow.
cents doesn't seem a lot, but that's a lot when you don't have any food or have any money there. So it was a tough times, but the fun part of it was playing soccer. And when I say play soccer, it was more like a makeshift soccer. We couldn't afford soccer ball. There was one person with a soccer ball in the whole village, and we have to stuff it, socks or long sleeve arms, clothes of sweater, make close one end of it and then put a lot of plastic in there, and make a tie like a bread, and then have another layer. So when you're playing in the gravel or in the rocks and things, so the second layer of the clothing won't be having hole, so the plastic is not sticking out. So, but that's the childhood I grew up in. But going to Italy when my dad sponsored us to come, it was the first time. I remember just first time going on the plane. We didn't know we were going to go. We just tell us my mom is the one that says we're going to go to Italy, and I'm sitting by the window, and he like this, in the year now that I'm older and you flew so many times that I traveled, the windows are small, this big. When you see it through the window to the outside, it looks big, and then you think you're going to fall out. They don't have safety check and things like that. So it was a challenge, but making it to Italy, I was the first one to run to my father. So it's my mom and 6 kids now. I was the one. I'm like, Papa. I ran into him, and he hadn't seen us for 5 years. His expectation and reality did not meet, and he goes, Met Howie, which is my youngest brother, Howie, who's 4 years younger. And I'm like, no, it's Meb or Mabrahtom. And he goes into tears because he's literally expecting me taller, stronger, and whatnot. And my mom is just like, don't worry. My dad started crying because he was sending us money. He was sending us clothes for us. But he understood the other people in the village that didn't get anything. And if we can be sending you money or, to expect you to eat and get bigger and you are that tiny, imagine the others that don't have the support. So
Right.
he just went to tears. And I remember my mom is telling him, don't worry about their heights or their weights. Just make sure all 6 of them are here, because for her, the first time getting on the plane, going overseas, no, we didn't have the language. We can't speak, besides our native tongue, Tigrinya. So all those things were really a wake-up call for all of us. I mean, I was 10 years old when we got to Italy. Is when I saw a TV for the first time. I'm like, that's kind of strange. How did the people fit in there? Or I went behind the TV to see if the people were there. I mean, that's,
Wow.
10-year-old. You don't know how to read, how to write at the time, and it was a difficult situation to be in. But through mercy of God, I have accomplished a lot of things, but it was through my parents giving all they had and have been a visionary to do something. Not don't wait for the future to come to them, but do something small that hopefully turned out to be big. And they saw that education was the key to life. And in Italy, I was obviously a soccer player. I love soccer or football. And my nickname was Pele. I guess I was another first name when I was playing soccer. So big compliment. I know Pele. My dad told us about Pele. He was the first athlete that I ever heard of. He was a Brazilian. He used to play in this field, and he didn't have shoes. And an agent found him, or this and that. But I didn't know running was a sport. I didn't know American football was a sport. I just or basketball or NBA, baseball or anything like that. I just knew soccer was it. And that's what I played as a child. That's what I played in Italy, and coming here to the United States. Even in fact, October 21st, 1987. As we, people say football, all you can understand. We didn't speak English. My dad woke us at 4:30 in the morning before we went to 7:30 o'clock class to learn English through the dictionary of English and Tigrinya. And people would say in the weekends, maybe, hey, you want to play football? We don't know. I mean, we just heard football. Like, yeah, football. Let's do football. And then they brought the football.
American football, yeah.
Soccer, but that's how my childhood was.
Wow. And then so from football was the natural progression to running, in distance running, and going to UCLA. How did you make that transition into track running?
So we came here on October 21st, 1987, due to my lack of not learning English. That they wanted me to put me in 7th grade. My age should have been 7th grade, but they said let's use him in San Diego, California. Middle school is from elementary to 6th grade, and the junior high was 7th, 8th, and 9th. So they said instead of putting this 12-year-old kid into 7th grade, let's give him that 1 year, maybe transition year. And I went to Jefferson Elementary, and I went through ASL, which is English as a second language. And a year later, it's 1988, it's Olympic year, and usually in California, school started like first week of September or so. And to this day, I don't know if the Olympics were, I think I Googled them maybe 5-6 weeks ago or so, when the Olympics were held, and so when school started, I know probably the Olympics just started or just finished. And a PE teacher eventually, didn't happen right away, but Coach Duke Lord said, if you run hard, you're going to get A or B. But if I see you mess around or goof around in this mile run, you're gonna get D or F. And my two oldest brothers who went to Roosevelt Junior High next to the Zoo San Diego, they got an A, and they got a shirt that says Roosevelt Junior High Mile Club t-shirt. And I wanted to be like them. I want to get that shirt.
Right.
And for me to do that, I have to run 6:15 for the mile, and for 7th grader, and you get A and B. And the teacher said that, so I said, all right, let's see if I 6:15. And I ran as hard as I can. It wasn't around the track full time. It was more around the baseball field, around the tennis court, and go to the middle of the campus. There's a ramp there, and then go around the soccer field, finishing up the ramp in the middle of the campus. And Coach Duke Lord, and to his surprise and mine, he looked at his watch. He goes, 5:20.
Wow.
You're going to go to the Olympics. I'm like, I just looked at it. I'm like, can I get what's a shirt?
the shirt, yeah.
And the A class, because my parents always made us say hard work does pay off in the United States. Make sure you try to strive for AE as an excellent citizenship. So make sure you do the best that you can to get those A's. And he goes, going to go to the Olympics. I'm like, oh, okay, got an A. That's all I care for right now. And I went home. That Coach Duke Lord called the high school coach, Ed Ramos, and he says, the two oldest ones are good, but this little one, he's going to be really good. So he's going to be an Olympian. And I went home that afternoon and asked Dad. I said, Dad, what are the Olympics? He's like, so why are you asking? What happened? And he goes, I ran in the class, and the teacher said, not in English, my native tongue, he said he's going to go to the Olympics. I'm like, what's the Olympics? And he goes, well, what'd you do? He's like, well, I ran a 5:20 for the mile. And he said, you're going to go to the Olympics. I'm like, well, tell the truth. I didn't think you ran 5:20. I didn't think your oldest brothers ran that fast. So, and he explained to me how the peace and harmony, the different continents get together. And he explained to me about the 5 rings and friendly competition and peace and harmony. And that's how I was introduced to running. And I guess, kept working hard. And by the end of the year, I ended up running 10 seconds faster. So it's not every week, but every 2 weeks or so. And I ran 5:20, 5:17, 5:16, 5:15, 5:13, and then my last one I ran 5:10. So I was naturally, my God-given talent was consistency, and I was within that. Even if you look my marathon records or my marathon times, then within seconds or within a minute of, you can run in New York and London and Boston, and at the Olympic Games, they were all within literally, all the different continents within probably 5-8 seconds of each other.
Yeah.
So I feel blessed to have come that. But it started with the mile run, and eventually want to make the high school cross country team, and then see if I can be in the top guy. With my two oldest brothers, we were teammates at San Diego High, and we ended up winning the CIF county division, and we ended up going to state meet, and all three of us. And I was 25th as a top freshman. I was the number 1 guy by the end of the year, even though my oldest brother was number 1 guy. Then he got injured, and then my other older middle brother went to be number one, and then he was goofing around with the bike and then fell out of the bike, hurt his hip, and I beat him ever since then. He never beat me.
Wow, that's an amazing story. And from there, the star was born, right? From, running those miles. At that point in time, you probably never thought you'd be running, sub 5-minute miles across 26 miles. But that's an amazing origin story to come from, war-torn Eritrea and to be able to come over and be, a 4-time Olympian. That it's one of those great American dream stories. It's one of those great immigrant stories. And, it just shows, what you can do if you set your mind to it and have consistency and discipline. It's just an amazing story. Okay.
Well, thanks for the kind words, but it's all about progress. People see marathoner and whatnot, but, making the cross-country team, and then you want to run 1 mile, 2 mile, to the 5K, and then to the 10K, and I'll be honest, most people ask me, what's your favorite in races? It depends what I was my age, because now if you look comprehensive of everything, it's the Boston that stands out more than the silver medal, more so the New York win. But at the time, just winning the CIF was huge, or qualifying for state was the biggest thing. And then eventually by my senior year, I just wanted to win state. And then when I went to UCLA, I was a student athlete. And the reason I chose UCLA was the diversity. I had the opportunity. I was the number one runner in the nation, the 1600 meter and 3200 meter. But I wanted to go to a school that had both academics and athletics, and that had diversity. It was important to me. I was recruited by Harvard, Stanford, Brown, and all those, and Princeton. But at the same time, my SAT maybe did not meet where I should be because of lack of English. But I was close to 4.0 as a student athlete. So I ended up going to UCLA for the diversity of it, and then also close to home. And then also the weather. Being from San Diego is nice versus going in the East Coast where the winter is kind of pretty rigorous.
Yeah.
But, you make progress, and then hopefully lead to NCAA titles. When I won 4 NCAA titles at UCLA, and then became a U.S. citizen in 1988, and I graduated from UCLA in 1999. The diploma that I got from UCLA is, Boston is meaningful, but also that degree was more meaningful for me because at the time I don't want to be seen as another athlete who never graduated. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of pressure from my parents, running. You don't know what's going to pay off running. There's no guarantee. So I worked extremely hard for that degree, and I felt such a weight off my shoulder to be able to say, hey, now let me see this running thing. Everybody thought I was going to go to the Olympics, and in my yearbook in high school, they said, don't forget the little people. You're going to see on TV. You're going to win medals. But some people saw my dream ahead before I saw mine. So once I graduated from UCLA, then I said, let's see this running thing is about. And I was able to go my first Olympic team in Sydney, Australia. This was prior to 9/11, so you can wear your USA jersey with pride and dignity. Everybody respected you, and you can have a great time wherever you went. And especially in Sydney, Australia, down under, went really huge to make sure you had a positive experience. And wearing that USA jersey for the first time, it meant a lot. It meant a lot. This is a country that gave me opportunities for me and my family, and to be an Olympian for an immigrant is very, very huge deal. And my dad, I remember, says, son, you're going to win tonight. I'm like, Dad, I have not even broken 28 minute yet. The guys that I'm competing against, like Haile Gebrselassie from Ethiopia or Paul Turgat from Kenya, they running 26:30s. I just hope I don't get laughed. Forget winning, I just hope. But he was disappointed. He's like, no, you can't think that. We can't think positive. I said, Dad, I have the flu. I just had the prelim. I really don't. I hope to beat him in the future, but tonight is not the night. And he was disappointed in me, kind of down. It's like, don't have negative thinking that way. But eventually in 2004, I have to beat Paul Turgat to win the silver medal. Right. So it did happen eventually, but it didn't happen that night. So you have to set your goals that are be realistic, but also make a progress that will you will achieve them. And if you stay consistent and don't get sidetracked, you will achieve them down the road.
Right, and you did exactly that. I mean, sometimes people discuss and debate: is it what you were born with, or is it what you work towards? And I think probably you've shown that it's both. It's the progression it's your abilities. You talk about the abilities that you were born with, and you really made the most of it. And given that getting your UCLA degree was one of the highlights above all, that says a lot about you and your family and what you guys valued. So that's pretty amazing. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about your actual running career now. In your book, 26 marathons. I read the whole book in a day. I highly recommend the book. I'm going to put the link to the book into the show notes of the podcast so that you guys can get it. I read the whole book in a day, and it was a fast page turner. And so you ran 26 professional marathons, and this is the basis of the book. So can you talk about the book and the focus and some of the things that you wanted to impart on the readers of the book?
Well, thanks for that shout out, Tony. And the 26 marathon is what I have learned through faith, identity, running, and life through my 26 marathon career. Because as a competitive athlete, you always ask you, how far is the Boston Marathon, or how far is the New York City Marathon? I said a marathon is 26.2. In honor of that, I decided to run one marathon for each mile to educate people. And through that, I learned the ups and downs that life has to present to you. And I think it is important to respect each other. I think it's important to respect the distance, because you can't be overconfident going to a marathon, because
right.
it is very humbling. But thank God for shared memories, because sometimes when you finish a marathon, it's like my first one, doing New York City Marathon in 2002. It put me on my knees. I said, this is my first and last marathon. I never want to do it again, because I was too confident in the middle of the race, and I hit the wall, the imaginary wall. We all have experience as runners. Your mind says go, your body says no. But I crawled it in, and I missed the A standard for the Olympic standard. I missed it by 35 seconds, and I was disappointed. I said, you want me to run another 26.2 miles to shave off 35 seconds? There's no way. I don't want to do it. I don't want to be partaking. I want to go to the 5K, 10K. My parents were there to witness that, and my poor mom, she always said, she saw me how much painful I was, and she says, 5K, 10K, okay, but no more marathons for you, And my coach would say, I heard that one before, but my dad was there. It was cold, 38 degree, and he was trying to massage my legs and things like that. But I think a marathon is a metaphor for life in a way that if you can achieve the dedication, the commitment, the perseverance, the ups and downs in training, and the ups and downs that you go through a journey of 26.2 miles on race day, can teach you valuable lessons: perseverance, hard work, focus, and commitment to real life. And I think that's what I try to portray. And I won Boston, I won New York. I done 26 marathons competitively, but I only won 3 of those and a silver medal versus the other ones. But you don't have to win all of them, but you can learn from each of them. And sometimes, like the 2005 New York City Marathon, I was injured. I was at the World Championship for track and field, and on August 8th, I ruptured my quads. And now I'm getting ready for November. I have to take time off. I did everything that I can. I didn't run no double days, just single days. Did a lot of cross training, and amazingly, I got healthy. I got to overcome my injury, the ruptured quad. I got healthy. I got a workout in, and amazingly, I came in 3rd place behind the world record holder and the defending champion. So people say, and I got down to the fighting weight, I guess, to mile 25 or 24. That made me believe that if I can just properly train, Coach Larson, my mentor and coach, and I believe that this is within reach, right? That you can still win it. And then in 2006, well, here's that thing. I got 3rd in New York, 3rd in Boston, 2nd in New York, and I think I'm ready to win. And then you get food poisoning out of nowhere. Some things you can control, and other things you can't control. Right. And here I'm at a nice restaurant, hotel, 5 stars, eating food, and I get food poisoning like Thursday before a Sunday race, and here's my opportunity. I thought I was going to be able to win it, and then I end up getting 22nd or 21st. Just kind of, then you kind of say, oh, I guess that was the opportunity, especially when I saw the Santos from Brazil won the winning time. It was within my range, the 209.50 something, and I'm like, oh, that was it. That was the year. But never give up hope, never lose sight of your goals, because it doesn't always happen when you want it. As a believer, always happens when in God's time. And I feel like winning the Boston Marathon in 2014, the year after the bombing, it's not for lack of training. I was not the best shape, but I have a greater cause, right, in the victim's name. The race was so motivated and asked God for their angels to give me the strength. And the Boston Strong slogan, you can see it on the side of the road, on the streets, and all that. The people just cheering you on.
What is it like running? What is it like running down Boylston Street with nobody else in front of you? To explain that experience.
Tony, that's once in a lifetime opportunity. You dream of it, you visualize it, and I woke up dreaming about it, actually. And it came down that race. It was me and somebody else. I don't know who that. When I woke up from my dream, but I mean, dreams do become true. And I think it was going to be 2 weeks shy of my 39th birthday. I think I was past. You think mentally you're past your peak period, but it was amazing, especially that year, because 36,000 people, the biggest field ever assembled the Boston Marathon, wanted to do something significant for the running community that show resilience, perseverance, that our streets are not going to be taken by terrorists who set the bombs off. So for me to lead Boylston Street and to be able to chant USA, USA, and come to that finish line, it's never over till the tape touches your chest, but to be able to do that, it was such a relief. And I looked up to the sky and looked at the heavens. I said, thank you, God, for this opportunity to lead the 36,000 people and be able to win it as an American and to be the first American in 31 years and the oldest since 1931. So it was it changed my life, and it was a blessing to just do the cross of the Christ when I went through the bombing. So it's a lot of emotion, and you feel blessed, you feel honored, but at the same time, man, like that UCLA degree, it was such a relief for me. Now it's like I could retire tomorrow, I'm okay. Whereas before, that was missing link.
And that was 2:08:37 or so, and that was was a PR, correct?
Still the PR, I have run Chicago, I have to run London, I have run New York, and that was the only time I ran, I think 9 or 10 times under 210. That was the only time I ran under 209, and it's such a blessing. And it was still is it will be my personal best ever. And to do it at the Boston Marathon, which it's not the easiest course, but when you're doing it for greater cause and when you're doing it for greater good, and having that monumental moment to be able to just something greater than yourself, it came all together for me.
And you're going to be known for Boston and New York. I think out of those 26 marathons, 3 wins, something like 2/3 of them looked like they were Boston and in New York. What can you impart on people who are hoping New York City Marathon happens this year? What advice can you give people getting ready for New York?
I think New York, for me, whether you're doing it for the first time or for the 5th time or 11th time, like for myself, New York is special. It's the capital city of the world, and people, movies, whatnot, people just want to come to visit to have a food and dine in and hang out. But we runners get the 5 boroughs, the different culture, different ethnicity going through. It's a treat. And if one marathon you have to do, I should do that, because if you get that opportunity, that's a wonderful marathon. It was my first, and it was my last competitive marathon, because how the New York runners do a great job with everybody to make sure they have a positive experience, whether it's from the front of the pack, the middle of the pack, or the back of the pack. Their whole thing is make sure you have a positive experience. And having said that, I think New York, I hope it happens this year. I don't know how realistic it is, just because of the second wave of coronavirus going on, COVID-19. So I hope it happens, and it would be a great humanity to come together, or any that come from here, because so much has been taken away from us. We wanted to come back and stronger and better, but at the same time, we have to understand that health and safety comes first and foremost. And because you don't want to this be gone for 5 years. We'd rather take a year off if we need to, like an injury, like it took me a year and a half to recover from the pelvic stress fracture, and come back stronger, do the right things for you and for your loved ones, and things like that, rather than rushing in. You don't rush in from coming back from injury. So even though they might say, hey, we're opening businesses, still wear the mask, still don't touch your mouth, don't touch your nose, your ears, and eyes. Take all the protocols that you need to until later on, because you be safe, don't be sorry, and getting to that starting line is healthy, and you want to do it slowly but gradually.
Yeah. Hopefully, if not this year and next year, those people are training for New York. It is truly a great experience. All 5 boroughs, and in the book you talk about, coming off that Queensboro Bridge and then running down First Avenue. How amazing that is, and then everybody puts up a fast split on that First Avenue stretch.
It's electrifying. It's electrifying. I think 2005, like I talked about it earlier, when I ran with Paul Turgot and Hendrik Ramallah, the defending champion, world record holder. That to this day, my fastest marathon split 1 mile is First Avenue. And I have not done any, because I was coming from injury. I was trained at altitude, but that was my fastest mile repeat on mile 16 of the First Avenue and 4:22, and then separation happened. I'm like, okay, let's separate the people, get it down to 5 people instead of 8 people. I throw another 435 or so. Those 2 splits, and when the crowd and the enthusiasm of the runners and feeling good, you feel like the energy is there. It's too early to make a decision. Sometimes I made big mistakes myself, my first marathon there. So you can go fast and crash. Also, it's a thrill of a life.
I ran it twice. Both times I ran it, I didn't have a really good race there. But coming off that Queensboro Bridge and going First Avenue, the same thing. Both times were really fast on that First Avenue. And then, you feel it later in Central Park when you realize. Yeah, so that's great. I mean, that's why I love the book. The book is just all those New York and Boston, and getting your account about the training, and many people don't realize that an elite marathoner like you'll put in 100 to 125 miles a week in a 7-day week, and you'll do your longest, most people's long run. The average recreational athlete, maybe you do an 18 or 20 or a couple 20s. You'll go all the way up to 25, sometimes even 20. 26, 27?
Yeah, done up to 28 for me. Tony, it's all about how healthy you are and how much time you have.
Yeah.
For me, I don't think you should guys do that as an average runner, just because it's my profession. I have to do the ice bath. I have to do the therapy. I have to do the drills. Everything is comprehensive to get me ready for the next day, for the next workout on that. So you have to be careful how you approach it. But I think if you have the time, 3 weeks, usually 3 weeks out before the race is what I do my most long run, and 5 weeks if I could run 5 weeks out. If I'm healthy, I would run 26, 27 miles in, and then the 4th week maybe run 21, and then go back the 3rd week to 25 or 26, and then now the hay's in the barn, the work is done.
Right.
Now fresh your whole body, get into that fine-tune, get race mode ready. But also sometimes when I'm playing catch-up, it might be 2 weeks out that I do my long run because I was injured, I was struggling. Now I can't, scale back, or what is the word? I'm losing the word for, when you are... Tapering. When you are tapering, tapering is perfect when you gradually going up and down. But if you are coming back from injury, then the tapering happens maybe a week before or a week and a half before, versus 3 weeks if everything was going perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just really shows you the difference. I mean, I think many people, and you get this in the book, many people have the false notion that elite athletes are just magically gifted, then they just go out and run that fast. But looking at what you describe in the book and how you're putting in these 125-mile weeks and these these really disciplined sessions and technique work and spot-on nutrition and race nutrition, it really shows how much work goes into being an elite athlete. It's not just magic, right?
I'll add a little bit on that. It's like, my high school, when I did as a freshman in high school, you have to put it in perspective. And when I was in high school, it was 25 miles a week. That was a lot for me. But with the gradual, and then now a professional, I'm putting 100 more miles. But yes, I have a lot of God-given talent. But I know there have been competitors that were more talented than me. But I always believe consistency, healthy, and consistent training of blocks. And some people will do, hey, I had a great run, let's, you don't get the proper rest, you don't get the proper massage, you don't get the proper nutrition. It's not, I wish it was all about running or the core workouts or the drills or the plyometrics.
Yep.
All the things add up. I mean, I talk about that in 26 Marathon, but also Meb for Mortals is the book that I have that tells you about all the nutrition, the drills, the recovery, the cross training, everything that you have to put together. It's a full-time job. I mean, 24/7. It's not. If it was, the great coach John Wooden basketball says, training takes 2 hours, but how you take care of yourself for the next 22 hours impacts your training, how you recover, and what you're going to do next time around and next month in. So there's no shortcut into marathoning and to long distance running, but you can just work hard the best that you can. And for me, my thing was like Kobe Bryant. Nobody's ever going to outwork me. Right. I mean, if they beat me on after I worked all that hard, then you know what? I have no problem shaking your hand, say congratulations.
More power to you. Right.
Because I worked extremely hard to be the best that I can, and you outsmart me, you outwork me. Guess what? You deserve it. You deserve it.
Yep, that's awesome. And I really had a great time reading the book, and I got all of that from the book. And of course, you also have, like you mentioned, Meb for Mortals, and also Run to Overcome, which is a lot of your inspiring origin story. So just great book, and it was good getting all of your perspective and training ideas and the mental side, the psychological side of getting into the right mindset and consistency, talking about consistency and such. It's a pretty amazing book. And so I want to be sensitive to your time here, and I want to ask you some of the big topics in running and in life currently. And one of the biggest topics in running over the last couple years has been the impact of running in footwear technology on running performance. And at the end of 2019, I would say probably preceding the end of October, several of the fastest marathons were run in the preceding, say, year to 18 months preceding the end of October 2019. And there was a big discussion about footwear and whether or not that there were performance advantages with the new footwear. And I want to get your perspective on this, because I know you were previously sponsored by Nike and then Skechers. So what's your perspective here? Do any of the new footwear technologies have any significant impact to an elite runner? And if so, how much? And if so, do you think any more needs to be done outside of what the IAAF has already done?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the IAAF now, the athletic world, has changed its name now, but I think it is very important. Yeah, I mean, shoes have impact on elite athletes. I mean, what brand, and sometimes you can wear shoes and that doesn't work for you, so you have to find another option for you. But having said that, I think the IAAF or World Athletics need to change some regulations, because I know you talked about maybe 2019 with the shoe that have come, but they were in existence 2016, which I was runner-up trials. I was at the Olympic Games and things like that. So I think it was 3 Nike athletes that finished 1, 2, 3 at the Olympic Games. Stuff like that, it happens. So I think it's important. Yeah, I mean, it's like running on dirt track versus all-weather track.
Right.
Everybody gets the dirt track or everybody gets the all-weather track. So now when you are sponsored athlete, you have advantages with some and you don't have disadvantages with others, just because, I mean, imagine running with cotton shirt and dry.
right, exactly. Yeah.
So you have those kind of things, but I mean, so there needs to be some regulation, or you have to catch up with the others. So that's why I think the route is going. I know it's very interesting now, because the Olympic Games supposed to be happening in 2020. So the shoes got approved until 2020 Olympic Games, but now that is postponed to 2021.
Right.
what's going to happen? That's the next question that I have, because it was too late to get them out or something. That is what happened for this year's already happened. So they're going to play it all the way to the 2020 Olympic Games, but now that is postponed. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think is important. There's advantages, but at the same time, you can't fault the company being very innovative. There's Skechers or there's Nike or whatnot. So I was able to have input with Skechers. My relationship with Skechers was individualized.
Right.
It was more of a partnership instead of sponsorship, whereas Nike was a sponsorship event that, they asked me for my input, and I would give them, and they would come from Oregon to Mammoth Lakes and give them a couple of days or whatnot to be able to give them information. And sometimes, depending on how your contract is going, you will give them an honest feedback, and sometimes you won't. So you play the other game too. So, but yeah, you have those kind of mentality to be the best that you can.
Yeah, I think when all of the discussion started to happen late last year, it was around Eliud Kipchoge and how he, the exhibition, the sub 2 hour exhibition, and Bridget Kosgei, and we saw Kenenisa Bekele, and we saw a lot of unbelievable performance. And what I noticed on social media was there's a lot of an undercurrent of these runners are already so good. Now they have other advantages. And some of the undercurrent, it was just that over the last few decades, the American elite marathoners haven't competed as well, right? And I think you have the record for the American with the most sub 2:10 marathons. And very infrequently do we now see an American below 2:10. So there's some undercurrent of that involved in this, where I think a lot of people, on Twitter and social media, a lot of people with blue check marks were really feeling, just like there was a sort of unfair advantage on top of the excess performance that was already happening. So what do you make of that, and why don't we see more Americans below 2:10?
Well, Tony, is ever since I was an Nike athlete, I had a bottom of my foot issue, especially in 2007. Yep. So I talk about in the book, and it's just a wound. It's a third-degree burn that it is hindrance when you're running, because if that starts hurting at mile 11, mile 12, you got 15, 14 miles of excruciating pain every step you take. Except, on the right one you don't feel, but that left step that you take is churns, and it gets. And I'm out of commission. I mean, even after the London Olympic Games, I was in a wheelchair. After the 15K at the Gay River Run in 2007, when I was wearing Nike athlete, I have to use broom to help me support to go to the hospital so they can drain it. Yeah, having material like that helps. I mean, with the new one now, I mean, you can fly, I guess. I mean, for me, is think if you can protect your feet, that's the first thing that gives up on me. That or my quad. It's not my breathing. It's not my hard work that I have put in. It's just like my foot. Especially when there's cobblestones and things like that. My foot is beat up, and that's part of the reason why I end up going to rush into retirement, because every time I do that, imagine after the Boston win, or after, I think 2005 or so, I have to drain my foot like 15, 16 times. Yeah. I mean, you go into VIP dinners or appearances, and you're wearing regular shoes, but you have Dr. Scholl's donut on it, so you're not stepping on it. Maybe I even put 2 of them, just to keep the clearance. So those things are important. But I always, whether I was wearing spikes with Nike and others, so that was my Achilles, blisters, and that turned out to be eventually a third-degree burn when I ran marathons. But if you have a comfort in your shoes, you have to do the work. It's not going to fly you in, safely in. But if as talented as I am, or as talented as Kenenisa Bekele or Kipchoge or others that have accomplished amazing things, I think with nutrition, equipment, proper training, you're not guessing the GPA. Having a GPS watch is important, because you say you're not going to go, I think I ran 7 miles. No, you ran 6.9, so you need to go a little bit more, or stuff like that. So it's very accurate, and then I think they have come to precise and nice shoes to help you with the aerodynamic or whatever, or bouncing back and all that stuff. But I've been definitely fortunate to be able to work with Skechers, been innovative from casual wear to high performance shoes. So it's been great to be working with them. And for me, they helped me with the midfoot strike, helped me be another long elongated my career, whereas it would have been over in 2008 or 2010.
Yeah, and then what do you think the Americans have to do to compete? Get faster.
Thanks for reminding me that question. I think, Tony, is group training is important. Altitude training is important. I mean, thank God for Coach Joe Vigil and my coach Bob Larson, and they were the first one in 2001 or so to be able to start the Running USA in Mammoth Lakes, California. Why? Because the Kenyans, the Ethiopians, they were the landmark that we wanted to chase, and guess what they were doing? They trained at altitude. So and we start doing that, and then start training in formation of groups, because when you are in group, you have somebody to talk to, even on the warm-ups. You don't have to do maybe the same exact workout, but you can cool down together, you can warm up together, you can train easy runs together. It keeps you, versus most of the time I was by myself, secluded, and it's like, why, if it was somebody else, say, hey, good morning, let's go for a run, and it's a positive energy. So having accountability with other training partners. Maybe, sometimes when I was doing my tempos, somebody would go over the first 2-3 miles with me and rest up, and then go the last 5, 7 or 8 with me. And so stuff like that, or toward the end of my career, I started having somebody volunteer or hire a bike pacer to help me, because it does make such a big difference to having people to train with, and also altitude is important. And so for the Americans to want to try to break the next 210, it sounds 210 is easy when everybody's running 2 hours or 2 hours and 5 minutes, but you got to do it that day, and for that you have to do the dedication, the commitment, and the sacrifices for the short-term benefit that you're going to put in and reward. It might not happen this year, but it might happen 2-3 years from down the road. It doesn't have, marathon is patience and training. Ethiopians and Kenyans now, unfortunately, mainly the Kenyans are getting more drug tested and getting positive tests. But before the theory was just like when I was in Eritrea as a kid, we used to walk to school. It doesn't matter how far the school is from one village to the next village. So it's not training, but if you're running late, you run to it and you walk them back. So and then when you're going to find woods for fire, or when you go into the well, you're going on your feet. So you are naturally training, just like the Kenyans and the Ethiopians. Mm-hmm. So in the United States, we look for the closest parking. Hey, mom and dad, parking at the closest one there, because it's too hot outside or it's too cold outside. And so, those situations, Americans don't have enough miles under their belt. Right. So I think the praise goes to Coach Joe Vigil and Coach Bob Larson for having the vision and wanting to change the resurgence of U.S. distance running. They had the vision. Dina Castor, who was a bronze medal at the 2004 Olympic Games, and myself in the same year as silver medalist, kind of gave them hope, showed the resurgence of U.S. distance running. And many people, that was the breaking point. It says, hey, if they went through high school here, collegiate here, and so won medals, we can do that. And like this Blaine Flanagan or Kara Goucher or Desi Linden or Dathan Rithenheim or Ryan Hall and others start believing, saying, hey, we can do it clean and nice and pure, because we have done those things. Our countrymen or women have done those, and we can definitely do that. I think that was a breaking ground.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. It could be a culture thing in that, we're sort of like the United States always gets beaten in football or soccer. And it's, it may just be a trend where it becomes an arms race. I remember, shoes or no shoes. I remember back in 2011 when I saw, one of your old competitors, Joffrey Mutai, came into the Boston Marathon and did 2:03:02. This was in 2011. And then his countryman was right behind him. And that was the first time I said, oh, my goodness, this is in a different gear now. This is a different level. And then, you have the record for the most finishes below 210. And, very infrequently do we see Americans below 210. So maybe you're right in that it will it will reverse, but it's an arms race now. I think the shoes maybe are less of the contributor to performance. It's an arms race now, and the contracts for running in various shoes, maybe that's a motivator. Money's a powerful motivator. I don't know, but we could talk about this all day, I guess. So, in the interest of your time, unless you have more to say about that, I'll move to the final couple of questions. I want to get into some questions to you about just what's happening in the world now, both with COVID-19 as well as many of the protests that are happening right now. So first, with COVID-19, many of the listeners have had all of their races canceled. Boston Marathon canceled for the first time in history. Most marathons either postponed or canceled. Chicago and New York are sort of up in the air. What advice can you give to people? You have already given some, but what words of motivation can you give people training now?
Well, COVID-19 has hindrance not only in the United States but globally, and my prayers and thoughts go to all the people that have been impacted. We all have been impacted, but we are lucky than most other people who have lost relatives or their son, daughter, husband, wife, and things like that. So it's a pandemic that has hit headstrong and very unpredictable situations. Unfortunately, the beauty of our sport was camaraderie and unity. Mm-hmm. And that's and it's tough. It's a community that has grace with, I believe, inclusiveness and love and care and unite people. Like Nelson Mandela, president of South Africa, says, sports unites us more than anything else. And now the separation has happened, but hopefully not in the long term. But it's definitely impacted the small races or big races that we enjoy dearly. And from the Boston Marathon or to the now New York or Chicago and things like that, or small races that are the Super Bowl for their own town,
right,
or community, like the Big Seven or Green Bay Bell and Run or Glass Wine in Corny, New York. So many other things that I've been part of and that I still look forward to going back hopefully sometime. But having said that, we have to look at the glass as half full instead of half empty. Yes, there's devastation. Yes, it's a disappointment, but injuries are part of sport. Disappointment are part of life. Yeah. And now, how do we recover from that and keep doing what we can control? Because the things that we can control, we can't. And we can't fret about it too much, but how can we help others say, hey, be a positive in the community and a positive to support each other, because the sport of running has supported many people through charity or through just exercise, working together at the local shoe stores and things like doing the long runs or intervals and things like that. So, but the beauty of running at the same token is the individuality it has to be able to go put on your miles, whether it's 3 miles or 5 miles. Maybe you can do social distancing and meet with one person or two people to get it done. Or when you're running on the street with somebody, hey, can I just have a conversation, get to know them? I ran into somebody here. I've been almost like we don't plan it, but we end up running together. Eventually, we see each other, and then we make a U-turn and follow the other and things like that. So I think it's important to realize, you don't have to do the long intervals or you don't have to do the long runs, but maintain your fitness, because when that opens up, you're going to have, now give it a time. It's involuntary vacation now, so now you could just work on your weaknesses, where is cores, or you can do, stress, core workout drills and things like that can help you. That before you say, I didn't have time. Well, run less miles now and use that every other day or twice a week to do those things that you don't enjoy because they're hard, or you want to learn something new with the drills or plyometrics, or work on your nutrition to help you be the best you can.
Yeah, you turn it around and look at the positives. Maybe pull back volume and try to improve and heal and come back next year. Okay, let's finish up with talking about the recent events with many of the protests. And we've seen protests about racial injustice and police brutality, and I want to know how have you approached this with your family? Have you talked to your family and your girls about the events, and if so, how do you make it a learning experience?
Well, one and foremost also goes my thoughts and prayers to the Black Lives Matters, but especially George Floyd and his family, and Ahmaud Arbery, and many countless people that have lost their lives. We can talk about it, but we can't get those lives back.
Right.
And it hurts because there's no justice for it, and with the social media, my oldest daughter Sarah knows what's going on. The other two kind of have an idea, but not really. But at the same time, we educate them to the best that we can. Most people know that I am always fearful when I see a cop. But I haven't got a ticket, but I like to consider myself a good driver, cautious driver, and that's what running has taught me. Be aware of your surrounding. Always. That's the beauty of distance running.
Yeah.
You need athletic, you can do this, and kind of know before it happens, because as a marathon runner, you have to predict. You got 10 miles left. You get better measure right to get to that finish line. You can't be in a rush 3 miles and then say crawl in this last 7 miles. So in having said that, sports can kind of connect you to the real life. I think it's important to realize this is important time for Black Lives Matters. It shouldn't take a video like George Floyd. It shouldn't take Arbery Atlanta shooting where he was running. I myself have been stopped many times. I got stopped once running, and I was in Jacksonville, Florida. It was not even a cop. It was more like a security man or park ranger, and running on an old rail track. And I just ran the race the day before. Got to run before I get a flight, and I knew he was going to stop us. And I said, my friend says, we were two African Americans. We got stopped, and he won't let us even go that way. I says, just give him the fake name.
Right.
We don't have our ID on us or whatever. But it has happened, which is unfortunate, because if we say, okay, we didn't know, we apologize for running in the middle of the city on the railroad. We just out looking for soft surface. We're not from here. But he wouldn't even know. You go back that way. And I'm like, you know what? You can't be agreemental. You can't be confrontation. Just says, okay, I'm a distance runner, and another half mile is not going to kill me, and you go away. But we got a warning. But at the same time, it's just, running is something that is free, that you can say you should have no worries. I'm going to go 5 miles. I'm going to run 7 miles. I'll see you in a little bit. Whether it's 30 minutes for an hour or whatever, it shouldn't be like, am I going to come home safe? And that, I should be, which I did. I was reluctant to go into certain areas because his exclusive membership golf course that had wood chips that I love for my training of soft surface, and I could do a few loops and not feel like I ran 27 miles, but I could run 20 miles or whatever, and feel good about it. And but it's hard to go by yourself, just because when I run, I don't want to get interrupted.
Right.
I'm at work. You don't come and somebody says, "Hey, stop right now." They have an appointment. It's stuff like that. But you don't know. You have that fear, and you have a fear of cops stopping you, which I got stopped in Minnesota. Not to make it about myself, but at the same time, it was the middle of the night, and we're in a from Eritrean culture. I was dropping somebody off, and the cop gave me. I told him I was an athlete. I only had one soda drink. I don't drink at all, but he made me do the whole test of DUI, and
wow.
I only slept maybe 6 hours the last 2 days, because I had a race the day before. I had this 2-day wedding with Eritrean, and I got up early to run with the Minnesota runners there. So it was go. But I was nervous. I always get nervous around cops, and now I'm getting extra nervous because I know if I mess around, something's going to happen. And but I made it. That was with a partner, another guy, not a partner, but another guy there. I told him, just play cool. It's 2:00 in the morning, and you don't want to make something stupid, and never know we are ourselves here. So it shouldn't have that kind of thing. But this is the new era where justice needs to be written, and then peace needs to be remanded, to be able to say, hey, we Black people need to be able to be affirmed that we're going to be okay. Police and protect and serve on whose interest, though. It should be for everybody, treat everybody equally, and not discriminate or racism toward those people who you stop in. It's a tough issue for me, but at the same time, it is a realistic and unfortunately shouldn't take a video, thanks to Steve Jobs and many people who are innovative to smartphone, and for God for allowing to have those brain to help us. Maybe, pictures was 1,000 words, and that video, not that we need to see it, but that was horrific and awoken a lot of people, and hopefully it's for a change for better. But it's a marathon, and got to do is educate people, communicate, and respect our differences, and have the integrity to know who we are. As Martin Luther King says, I want my kids to be judged by the content of their character, not the skin of the color. And that's what I tell the girls. You have to work extremely hard to earn their respect and make flow. Not everything is equal, unfortunately, as of right now. So that's why I love racing. The gun goes off. Whoever gets first. Everybody is at that point. The reason I chose soccer, because there was favoritism. There's a lot that I love soccer. I love my passion. But the reason I chose running is specifically for that, because but you have to get opportunities to get into the races too, because some people can not allow you to be in those races. So, but once that is clear and cut, first place, second place, third place, or your watch won't lie to you. It is what you put in.
Yeah, and I echo those comments, all of your comments, and I'm sorry to hear that experience happened to you. And this is the reason why I like sport, because sport is a unifying force unlike anything, I think, on the planet, right? And you had talked about in the book about Mike Cassidy. You met Mike Cassidy that day in the race, and then you bonded during the race. You didn't care about what race he was, what religion he was, or anything. But this is what sport does. It's a unifying force. And when you're embroiled in sport and training with people, and even the competitive aspect of sport, everyone is together. No one cares about who you are, what color you are, your race, your religion, your Democrat, Republican politics. Nobody cares. Yeah. Everyone just likes the race. I really believe in the unifying force of sport, and maybe it is sport that's going to lead us out of all of this fighting and things like that. I think I made a statement on my social media about how we're all sort of originate from common roots. So you and I have a common ancestor, probably closer common ancestor. My ancestry goes back to Nigeria, Ghana, the Congolese, broadly Western African. So we have a close common ancestor. But someone who's white, we also have a common ancestor, but it's just a little more far back. And so the unifying message is that we're all coming from the same roots, and I think that's something that may be a unifying message going forward out of this. So,
absolutely. I mean, I think I like to echo what you said, but I am a Nelson Mandela's believer, and his quote was, I think he said, "Sports unites us more than anything else does," and the power of sports is amazing. I think being a distance runner or being in sports, it allows you to be family in a way that, hey, you play rugby or you play around 5K, or you're a pole vaulter, or you are this, or you're a sprinter. You have this common togetherness.
Yeah.
And no matter what race you are a teammate, and I got your back no matter what. And I think over the years, I think running has been majority of white or Caucasian, but over the years there also has been increase in African Americans, Latinos, Indian, and Asian, and things like that. And it's a beautiful thing, because we don't know what their religion is, we don't know what their bank account look like, but we know that everybody wants to run 5K, 10K, 13.1 miles, or 26, or ultra, and it's like, oh, I missed out this. I wish, in the distance running, you always say, I wish I started early. There's never been a person that says, why am I here? It's like, oh man, this is such a beautiful thing. And I think hopefully that's what it is. I think, we can educate our brothers and sisters more so, because I think, when people think of distance running, it is used as a punishment in high school. Hey, you're late, go give me push-ups and runs. But eventually with the 5K, 10K, you don't have to sprint. You just got to go your pace and make it enjoyable and have music and all those things to help you be the best that you can. And, make it flawless versus, I got to go run again. Dread it. It's not that bad. You will get better over time and the friendship that you make. And, there's good cops. There's bad cops.
Yeah.
Mainly there's more good cops. There's, good white people. There's some, unfortunately, not so good people. But my career, my thing has been, when I told you earlier about UCLA, there was a professor, Ted, I believe he was named Ted, and he always says, why don't you run for the citizen of the world? This is in 98. He says, Meb, you have a unique way coming from Africa to Italy to United States. You represent the citizen of the world. And, I wish I had listened to him. I think there was a flag that I would have done it, but I think is something to say that people help you build up to be the best you can. And I have people who are Caucasian who left their keys in the hiding spot, say, Meb, you know what? When you come, you're traveling. Here's the key to the house, or here's the combination for the alarm of the house. Why? Because once you judge that person by their character, skin is just irrelevant. I love what Ben Carson said. When you go to a surgery, you just want to save life, no matter what that person is. When you go under the skin, it's all blood. It's red. It doesn't say, I'm Republican, I'm Democrat, I am, my economic status is this or why not. It's just pure, your instinct will say, I got to save that person. And for us, as runners, it's like, hey, follow marathoner, hey, follow a half miler, a half marathoner, or follow runner versus, because you are this and that. I at least for me, I never looked at it that way.
Yeah. I hear you. All right, we're over time, and so I want to be sensitive to your time, and thanks for having this podcast with me. So the book is 26 Marathons. I will put the link in the show notes, and you guys got to get the book. It's amazing. The story of Meb from Eritrea to 4-time Olympian. Okay. 26 professional marathons, 3 of them victories, Boston, New York among them. So thanks again for coming on to the podcast. Where can people find you on social media?
Thanks, Tony, and I appreciate the kind words and also to be on your podcast. Everybody wish you all the best, but you can always follow me on @RunMeb, Instagram, and marathonmeb.com. And you can order your books through that website also, whether it's Run to Overcome, my autobiography, or Meb for Mortals, if you're looking for some training to put your performance to another level. I think it's been great to be able to share my stories, but also 26 marathons. This is my memoir of my 26 marathons and what I learned through faith, identity, running, and life. And I hope you can share with somebody else. If you already have run, thanks for your support. And if you haven't, I think you will get motivated. So stay safe, stay healthy, and be well.
All right. Thanks again. Thanks again to Meb Keflezighi for coming on to the Endurance Experience podcast and to kick off our Season 3 on International Olympic Day. If you're new to the podcast, this is an example of the type of work we put out. So go on Apple iTunes, subscribe, and rate. That helps us out in the Apple algorithm. And we also have a YouTube channel where we put out content there as well. That link is in the show notes, or you can go on YouTube and type in eventhorizon.tv. If you like what we do and you want to support the platform, please consider going to patreon.com/endurance and subscribe to become one of our patrons. Thanks again. This is the Endurance Experience podcast.
Follow Event Horizon Endurance Sport on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter for training programs and services. To become a member of our Endurance Institute or for a complete archive of podcasts, log on to our website, eventhorizon.tv.